recruited our inaugural students, we said we wanted to help them come and build a new law school. We asked them to create student organizations. The very first student organization we formed was the Orange County Human Rights Association. The two co-founders are with me now, Denisha McKenzie and David Rodwin. Let me start by asking each of you, why did you form this organization? What were your purposes for it?
So my background, I grew up in Los Angeles. I went to inner city public schools throughout, elementary, junior high, and high school. And then after that I went to Tufts University. And, going from an inner city public school system to a very elite private school allowed me to see just the drastic inequities in terms of education in this country. And so that really became my passion. When I started off at Tufts, it was really difficult to make that adjustment. And once I did, I realized that more students who come from where I came from should have that opportunity. And I just thought that it was a grave inequity that we didn't have that. So when I got to law school, I decided that I wanted to found a student organization that really dealt with that issue in particular because it was near and dear to me. And to me, it's just as atrocious as any human rights violation that we talk about within the international community. So when I spoke to Dave about this experience, we were able to really combine both of our interests before law school and develop an organization that looked at rights, rights like education and a framework of human rights. And, I think he'll talk about his experience that led up to that as well.
Yeah, so I had spent, prior to coming to law school, about 15 months or so in rural India working with a human rights organization. And I came back with the goal of applying that human rights framework towards kind of social justice issues in the United States that are looked at typically as kind of local issues of domestic concern or local concern. And there's a movement now, it's sometimes referred to as bringing human rights home, taking that international human rights framework, applying it domestically, enlarging the issues, using human rights strategies. And when Denisha and I started talking early on last year about a group that we were maybe considering founding, that was a persistent theme that we encountered in our conversations was why is it that something is, some local issue if it happens in South LA, but it's an international human rights concern if it happens in India. So we wanted to use that philosophy, engage with a number of different local issues, which is why we call it Orange County Human Rights Association. Even in Orange County, which is typically conceived of as a very wealthy county, there are human rights issues happening in our communities every day, and that's really what we wanted to focus on.
Could you give some examples of things that the Orange County Human Rights Association has done under your leadership?
Sure. So our very first event was one where you spoke at, and we really were concerned there with the issues that surround the prison system, particularly with sentencing and criminal sentencing. And what was most pressing for me at that time was just the disparities between crack and powder cocaine sentencing, especially how minorities and African Americans would normally get 5 to 10 more years in jail for a lesser amount of the substance in someone who was more from an affluent community using powder cocaine. So we really just wanted to talk about that issue and view it more as a human rights issue where as a result of the sentencing disparities, you have families who don't have fathers in the home. You have children who are more likely to be in poverty because both of their parents aren't in the household and providing economic stability. So that was the first event we did. And then the next one was
immigration. And Sam Lamb, who's now heavily involved in the IRAP program,
which is the Iraqi Refugee Assistance Project.
Right. He helped us put together an event focusing on immigration. Professor Lee and Professor Jacone spoke at that event. That was our first open event. We really try hard to engage not just students of different backgrounds and perspectives within the law school, but engage the larger UCI community and the larger community outside of UCI. So we opened up that event to everyone. It was really well attended and really good.
What are some examples of things you've done this year?
Let's see, well, just this past Friday, we organized a trip to Orange County Men's Central Jail, and a deputy there took us around on kind of a tour of the facilities. We're focusing now, in the month of February, on the school-to-prison pipeline, and to give students kind of a larger perspective on that, we thought, well, why not, you know, we read about jails all the time, we read about cases where people are being sent to jail. How many people have, you know, gone into a jail and seen it? So, and I had that perspective in my undergraduate experience in Baltimore, and it was really, you know, impactful for me. So that was just on Friday. That was I felt really valuable.
It was a really valuable event because case law only gives you so much. You hear, you know, someone commits a robbery, but you don't know what the aftermath of that is. And at the end of the day, people do make mistakes, and people should be punished for that. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we, as a society, should write them off at the bottom and not consider them as human beings. So really, what we wanted to see was that the prisons were doing enough to make sure that these people were still human beings, even though they should rightfully serve out their sentences for the crimes that they've committed. And I think that the tour allowed us to see that it's possible for us to penalize people but still remain humane as a society. So the tour was really good in that perspective, and yeah, it was really awesome.
An example or two of what you're planning for the rest of this year, and to the extent you're thinking about next year, some of the things you might want to be doing.
Yeah, well, as a part of this school-to-prison pipeline series, we're also screening the education charter school documentary, The Lottery. That's just happening in a few days, actually, on Thursday. We've invited a representative from the Children's Defense Fund, Michelle Newell, as well as from the ACLU of Southern California, David Sack, to come speak about the school-to-prison pipeline. And then Denisha is also planning kind of a series of homelessness-centered events.
That's a big topic in international law. Everyone should have a right to housing, and you know, being one of the richest nations in the world, it's an atrocity that so many people are just without in this country. So I really want to work with the 1L class as well as the incoming 3L class to really, you know, address that issue. And I think a big thing that we forgot to mention about OCHRA is that we're very much invested in the academic discussion surrounding these issues, but another thing that's really important to us is getting out into the community and making a difference. So we forgot to mention that we've partnered with the Medical
Initiative Against Homelessness.
The Medical Initiative Against Homelessness here at UCI, and we have law students on a weekly basis go out and tutor homeless children at the Costa Mesa Motor Inn, and that's another really important thing. So I guess in the future what we hope to do is continue to develop relationships to have that community engagement aspect of OCHRA, because you know, it's important to get the theory, but that means nothing if you can't really put that into practice and see what's going on in the communities. So.
Certainly when I and the faculty thought of students creating organizations, it's exactly one like this. That was what we were hoping for, and it's everything that we could have imagined.
Oh.
So congratulate both of you for all you're doing.
Thank you very much.